Alright, so here we're going to look at this question. So the question that I have here is, an organic compound on analysis yielded 2.04 grams carbon, 0.34 grams hydrogen, and 2.73 grams oxygen. A. What is the empirical formula of the compound? Then B. If the relative molecular mass of the compound is 60, calculate its molecular formula. So we're given the relative atomic mass of carbon to be 12, the relative atomic mass of hydrogen to be 1, and the relative atomic mass of oxygen to be 16. Again, the question is, an organic compound on analysis yielded 2.04 grams carbon, 0.34 grams hydrogen, and 2.73 grams oxygen. Alright? A. What is the empirical formula of the compound? So the first thing that we're asked to look for here is the empirical formula. So in looking for the empirical formula of a compound, there are two things that you do. Number one is to find the mole and then divide by the smallest mole. Alright, so the elements that are present in this compound, in this organic compound, are carbon, because we have 2.04 grams carbon, we have 0.34 grams hydrogen, and we have 2.73 grams oxygen. So the elements present in this compound are carbon, hydrogen, and what? And oxygen. So the next thing I would want to do is to look for the mole of each of these what elements. So mole is equal to what? Reacting mass over molar mass. Alright, so the reacting mass of carbon is what? 2.04 grams. Alright, so that's 2.04 over the molar mass. The molar mass of carbon is what? Is 12. So mole, you should know this, that mole is equal to reacting mass, alright, reacting mass over what? Over molar mass. Over molar mass. So what is the mole of hydrogen? So the mass of hydrogen is what? Is 0.34. Alright, so that's 0.34 divided by the relative atomic mass of what? Of hydrogen, which is 1. Then we calculate the mole for oxygen too. So the reacting mass of oxygen is what? 2.73. So that's 2.73 divided by the relative atomic mass of oxygen, which is what? 16. So when we divide, 2.04 divided by 12 will give me 0.17. Alright, 0.34 divided by 1 will still give me 0.34. Then 2.73 divided by 16 will give me 0.17. So the next thing I will do is to divide by the smallest. What? By the smallest mole. So out of these three numbers, which is the smallest? The smallest is what? 0.17. Alright, so I will divide all through by 0.17. So this is 0.17 divided by what? 0.17. Because 0.17 is the smallest mole. Alright, then this is 0.34 divided by what? 0.17. Then this is 0.17 divided by 0.17. Alright, so 0.17 divided by 0.17 is 1. 0.34 divided by 0.17 will give me 2. Then 0.17 divided by 0.17 will give me 1. So the ratio of carbon to hydrogen to oxygen in this compound is 1:2 ratio what? Ratio 1. So therefore, the empirical formula of this compound, is equal to CH2O. This is telling you that we have 1 carbon ratio 2 hydrogen ratio 1 oxygen in this compound. Alright, so this is the formula that shows the simplest whole number ratio of the atoms of each element that are present in this compound. Alright, so again, this is telling you that we have 1 carbon ratio 2 hydrogen ratio 1 oxygen in this compound. Then the next question is, if the relative molecular mass of the compound is 60, calculate its molecular formula. If the relative molecular mass of the compound is 60, calculate its molecular what? Molecular formula. So the molecular formula is showing you the actual number of atoms of each element that are present in one molecule of this compound. Alright, so from what we discussed before, remember I said that the molecular formula, so this is our B, alright, the molecular formula of a compound, formula of a compound is equal to the whole number multiple of the empirical formula. Alright, so the empirical formula that we got here is what? CH2O. Alright, so that will be CH2O times what? Times N, where my N is the whole number multiple. So again, molecular formula is the whole number multiple of the empirical formula. Alright, it is the whole number multiple of the empirical formula. That is what is here right now. Alright, so we are given that the relative molecular mass of the compound is what? 60. So that means that C plus H2 plus O, open bracket, bracket close, times N will be equal to what? 60. Because the relative molecular mass of the compound is what? 60. Relative molecular mass is the sum of the atomic masses of all the elements present in the compound. Alright, so when you add everything together, it will be equal to 60. Alright, so what is the relative atomic mass of carbon? The relative atomic mass of carbon is 12. So that is 12 plus the relative atomic mass of hydrogen is 1. Alright, so 1 times 2, and that will give us what? 2, plus the relative atomic mass of oxygen is what? 16, plus 16, open bracket, bracket close, times N is equal to what? 60. So 12 plus 2 is 40, 40 plus 16 will give us what? 30, and 30 times N will give us what? 30N, equal to what? 60. So to look for the value of your N, you are going to divide both sides of the equation by the coefficient of N. The coefficient of N is that number that is attached to N, and that is 30. Alright, so my N will be equal to 60 divided by what? Divided by 30, and that will be equal to 2. So my N, which is the whole number multiple, is equal to what? Is equal to 2. So again, molecular formula is equal to the whole number multiple of the empirical formula. Alright, so this will be equal to CH2O, open bracket, bracket close. So I've calculated my N to be what? My N to be 2. So I'm going to put the value of 2 here, 2. Alright, so 2 times C will give me what? Will give me C2. Alright, 2 times H2 will give me what? H4. Because 2 times 2 will give me 4, right? So 2 times O will give me what? O2. This is the molecular formula of this compound. So the molecular formula, alright, the molecular formula is equal to what? C2H4O2. So this is the formula that is showing you the actual number of atoms of the elements that are present in one molecule of this compound. Alright, so in this compound we have 2 carbon, we have 4 hydrogen, and we have 2 oxygen. Alright, and this is ethanoic acid. So it can also be written as CH3COOH. Alright, this is ethanoic acid. This is the molecular formula. Alright, so it's very important that you should know that this compound is what? Ethanoic acid. You have 4 hydrogen, 3 hydrogen plus 1 hydrogen will give you 4 hydrogen. You have 2 carbon, 1 carbon here, 1 carbon here, 2 carbon. Then you have 2 oxygen, and these are the 2 oxygen. Alright, so this is the molecular formula. So it's very important that you should know that the molecular formula is a whole number multiple of the empirical formula. Alright, it is a whole number multiple N of the empirical formula. Very important. Alright.